The red sun of Viridian 6 broke over the eastern ridge, casting long shadows across the domed city of Haven. The light filtered through the worn atmospheric shields, creating a pattern of cracks and lines on the ground below. Chief Engineer Kayla, Tyr watched this daily light show with a mixture of worry and wonder. The shields were failing, had been failing for years, but the way they broke the sunlight into 1,000 tiny rainbows still made her pause each morning. Beautiful and broken, she whispered to herself, her 6-fingered hand pressed against the observation window. Her skin, a pale blue that darkened at the edges of her face, reflected the morning light. The dome had been built to last 50 years. That was 200 years ago. Behind her, the door to the observation deck slid open with a grinding sound that spoke of worn gears and failing systems. Kayla didn't need to turn to know who it was. Elder Mivax, she said, still watching the sunrise. You're up early. The oldest member of the colony council stepped beside her, his skin patterns dimmed with age and worry. Once the Zorathi's skin would glow with bright patterns when they were happy or excited. Mivax's patterns had been dim for as long as Kayla could remember. The water recyclers in Sector 4 stopped working, he said simply. His voice was low and rough, like stones rolling together. Kayla closed her eyes. That's the third system this month. Can you fix it? She turned to look at him. Mivax had been old when she was born. Now his eyes were cloudy, and the breathing slits on his neck fluttered with effort in the thin air. I can try, she said. But we're out of replacement parts. I'll have to take pieces from something else. Mivax nodded slowly. This was how they had lived for generations, cannibalizing one system to fix another, slowly watching their colony die around them. The council meeting starts in 20 minutes, he said. The children are asking questions we cannot answer. Kayla knew those questions well. Why did our people leave us? When are they coming back? What happens when the air runs? The Zorathi had once been part of a vast empire that spanned 20 star systems. Viridian 6 was meant to be the newest jewel in that empire, a mining colony to harvest the planet's rich mineral deposits. But then came the collapse, a political upheaval that had torn the empire apart. In the chaos, the small colony on Viridian 6 had been forgotten, a footnote in a history that moved on without them. For 200 years, they had waited for someone to remember them. I'll be at the meeting, Kayla promised. Let me check the communication array first. Mivax's breathing slits fluttered in what might have been a laugh. Still hoping for a signal? Kayla didn't answer. Everyone knew she checked the ancient communication array daily. Everyone knew there had never been a response to their distress calls. Hope was a luxury they could no longer afford, but Kayla clung to it anyway. As Mivax left, Kayla gathered her tools, a collection of makeshift devices and repurposed equipment. The Zorathi had been a peaceful, scientific race. They had not been prepared for abandonment. Each generation knew less than the one before, as knowledge was lost and technology failed beyond their ability to repair. Outside the main dome, the air was thin and dry. Kayla's breathing slits worked harder as she made her way to the communication array on the edge of the colony. The array was a patchwork of repairs, a skeleton of its former self. Most of its dishes pointed uselessly at the sky, frozen in place by dust and time. The control room was small and dim, lit only by the glow of a few functioning screens. Kala sat at the main console, her fingers moving automatically over the keys, running the same program she ran every day. The system would scan for signals, searching the emptiness of space for any sign that they were not alone. On the screen, lines of data scrolled past. Nothing, nothing, and more nothing. Kayla sighed and was about to shut down the system when something flickered on the screen. She froze, certain she had imagined it. But there it was again. A small blip in the data stream, something the system didn't recognize. Her heart pounding, Kayla typed in commands to isolate the anomaly. The system was old and slow, and she held her breath as it processed her request. Finally, the screen changed, showing a single line of data. Unknown object approaching. Kayla stared at the words, unable to believe what she was seeing. She ran the scan again, certain it was an error, a glitch in the failing system. The same result appeared. Something was coming. Kayla's hands shook as she pulled up the tracking data. The object was moving quickly on a direct course for Viridian 6. It was large, much larger than any meteorite, and its movement was too regular, too purposeful to be natural. It was a ship. For the first time in her life, Kayla saw her skin begin to glow with bright patterns of excitement and fear. She ran all the way back to the main dome, ignoring the burning in her lungs from the thin air. She burst into the council chamber, interrupting the meeting that had already begun. "Something's coming," she gasped, leaning against the doorway for support. The 12 council members turned to look at her. Elder Mivax rose slowly from his seat. "Kayla, what are you talking about?" "A ship," she said, still trying to catch her breath. The array detected a ship approaching Viridian 6. A murmur swept through the council chamber. Some faces showed disbelief, others fear, and a few dared to show hope. "Could it be them?" asked Councillor Vex, the youngest member. "After all this time, could the Empire have remembered us?" Kayla shook her head. "I don't know. The ship's design doesn't match anything in our database. That caused a new wave of concern. If not their own people, then who? In the 2 centuries since the colony had been established, they had never encountered another spacefaring species. "How long until it arrives?" Mivax asked, his voice steady despite the news. "Based on its current speed, 3 days," Kayla replied. The council erupted into arguments. Some wanted to hide, to shut down all systems and hope the visitors would think the colony abandoned. Others wanted to prepare defenses, though their weapons were few and outdated. And some, like Kayla, wanted to send a greeting to welcome whoever was coming. "Enough!" Mivax's voice cut through the chaos. "We have survived for 200 years because we acted together. We will face this new challenge the same way." He turned to Kayla. "Can you send a message to the ship?" She nodded. "I think so, but I don't know if they'll understand it." "Try," Mivax said. "Tell them who we are. Tell them we mean no harm." As the council continued to debate what to do, Kayla returned to the communication array. Her hands moved over the console, preparing the colony's first outgoing message in generations. To the approaching vessel, she typed, "This is the Zorathi, colony on Viridian 6. We have been stranded here for 200 years. Our systems are failing. If you can understand this message, please respond." She sent the message and then waited, watching the screen for any sign of a reply. Hours passed, the red sun set, and the stars came out, clearer and brighter through the thinning atmosphere. Kala remained at her post, refusing food and rest, her eyes fixed on the screen. And then, just as the first light of dawn touched the horizon, the console beeped. A message had arrived. With trembling fingers, Kala opened it. The language was strange, unlike anything in the colony's database. But at the bottom of the message was a simple image, a hand, open in what looked like a gesture of peace. They had made contact. For the first time in 200 years, the Zorathi were no longer alone. Lieutenant Ryan Miller floated in the observation bubble of the USS Pathfinder, watching as the blue-green planet grew larger in the viewport. Viridian 6, as it was labeled in the old star charts. The ship had been on its exploration mission for nearly 8 months, mapping systems that humans had only seen through telescopes until now. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said a voice behind him. Ryan turned to see Captain Olivia Barnes enter the small dome. She was a tall woman with dark skin and close-cropped hair that had started showing gray at the temples. 20 years in Earth space, program had earned her command of humanity's second deep space exploration vessel. "Yes, ma'am," Ryan replied, turning back to the view. "Hard to believe we're the first humans to see it up close." Captain Barnes floated beside him, her eyes reflecting the planet below. "Maybe the first humans," she said quietly. "But I don't think we're the first visitors." Ryan gave her a questioning look. As the ship's sensor officer, he should have been the first to know about any signs of alien presence. "Those structures you detected on the night side," Barnes explained. Central Command thinks they're artificial. Ryan's eyes widened. Earth's scientists had long believed that intelligent life existed elsewhere in the galaxy, but in the 15 years since humans had achieved viable interstellar travel, they had found only ruins and remnants of civilizations long gone. Are we talking about ruins, Captain? Or, that's what we're here to find out, Barnes said. Report to the bridge. In 30 minutes. We're establishing orbit. The bridge of the Pathfinder was a hive of activity when Ryan arrived. The curved displays showed various views of the planet below, zoomed in on what appeared to be a cluster of domed structures on one of the smaller continents. Definitely artificial structures down there, Captain, Ryan confirmed as he checked the latest sensor readings at his station. And I'm picking up a weak transmission on an outdated frequency. Captain Barnes nodded, her expression thoughtful. Earth's first extrasolar colony mission, and we stumble across someone else's abandoned outpost. Typical. Communications Officer Alan Ward leaned forward at his station, his red beard catching the light from his screens. Ma'am, I've isolated the signal. It's a distress call. Been repeating for at least 50 years based on the degradation pattern. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. Whatever had sent that signal wasn't human. Any response to our transmission? Barnes asked. Yes, ma'am, Ward replied, sounding surprised. Just came in. It's in a language I've never seen before, but they included an image. He put it on the main screen, a simple drawing of what looked like a six-fingered hand held palm outward. Greeting, Barnes said with a small smile. Or at least not a warning to stay away. She turned to her first officer. Commander Gwen Howard, prep the landing team. First contact protocols in effect. Commander Howard, a woman with light brown, hair pulled back in a tight bun, nodded crisply. Yes, Captain, who's going down? Barnes considered for a moment. Dr. Green for medical and biology, Martinez for security, you to lead and... She glanced at Ryan. Lieutenant Miller, I want our best sensor officer down there. Those domes look like they're in rough shape. We need to know what we're dealing with. Ryan felt a mix of excitement and nervousness wash over him. He had joined the deep space program hoping to discover new worlds, but the possibility of meeting actual aliens had seemed like a distant dream. 90 minutes later, Ryan found himself in the shuttle bay, zipping up his environmental suit. The preliminary scan suggested the atmosphere was breathable for humans, but protocol demanded caution for first landings. Dr. Samantha Green checked her medical kit for the third time. She was the ship's xenobiologist, though until now her expertise had been limited to studying alien plants and simple organisms. Nervous? She asked Ryan with a small smile. Trying not to show it, he admitted. Best guess is we're meeting a colony, in trouble, Security Chief Peter Martinez said as he joined them. The former Marine moved with a confident ease despite the bulky environmental suit. Captain wants us to be friendly but cautious. Commander Howard approached, her suit already sealed except for the helmet. Remember your training, people. We represent Earth and all of humanity. Let's make a good first impression. The shuttle. Ride down was smoother than Ryan expected. As they descended through the thin atmosphere, he got his first close look at the colony. 7 interconnected domes spread across a rocky plain, with smaller structures scattered around them. Most notably, a massive array of communication dishes stood on a nearby ridge, many of them visibly damaged or misaligned. Those structures are at least 200 years old, Dr. Green observed, looking at her readings. But they've been maintained. There's still power running through them. The shuttle settled on a flat area about 50 meters from the largest dome. Through the viewport, Ryan could see movement, figures gathering at what appeared to be an airlock. They're waiting for us, Commander Howard said. Let's not keep them waiting. The team exited the shuttle in formation, Howard in the lead. Ryan's heart pounded in his chest as he took his first steps on an alien world. The gravity was slightly less than Earth's, making each step feel lighter than it should. As they approached the dome, the outer door of the airlock slid open with a grinding sound. Commander Howard stopped the team about 10 meters away and stepped forward alone. From the airlock emerged 3 figures. They were roughly human-shaped but clearly alien. tall and slender with blue skin that seemed to have faint patterns glowing beneath the surface. They had no hair, and their faces featured large dark eyes above small nose slits and lipless mouths. Most strikingly, their necks had what looked like gills that fluttered gently in the thin air. The central figure, who appeared older than the others, stepped forward to match Howard's gesture. It wore a simple robe with intricate patterns woven into the fabric. "I am Elder Mivax of the Zarathi colony," the alien said in a halting, accented version of English. "We welcome you to Viridian 6. Ryan barely contained his shock. The alien had spoken English. Howard recovered quickly, removing her helmet when her instruments confirmed the air was safe. "I am Commander Gwen Howard of the Earthship Pathfinder. We received your distress call." The alien called Mivax tilted his head slightly. "You understand our language?" "Our computers analyze the mathematical patterns in your transmission," Howard explained. "And we've been receiving your broadcast for several hours. It gave our translator program enough to work with." The younger female alien stepped forward, her skin patterns glowing more brightly. "You responded to our call," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "After 200 years, someone finally came." 200 years, Dr. Green whispered. Mivax nodded solemnly. "I am Kayla Tier, Chief Engineer. Our colony was abandoned during the collapse. We have maintained our systems as best we could, but—" She gestured to the dome behind her, where Ryan could now see visible patches and repairs. "We are failing, Commander." Howard's expression softened. "We're here to help if we can." The third alien, who had remained silent until now, suddenly spoke. "Are you from the Empire? Have they finally remembered us?" Mivax placed a hand on the younger alien's shoulder. "No, Vex. These are not Zarathi. They are—" He looked questioningly at Howard. "Humans," she supplied. "From the planet Earth. This—" News spread quickly among the growing crowd of aliens gathering at the airlock. Ryan could hear murmurs and see the patterns on their skin changing colors, some brightening, others dimming. "We had no knowledge of your empire," Howard continued. "We are on an exploration mission. Your distress signal is what brought us here." Kayla's skin patterns glowed even brighter. "You came because we called for help?" "Yes," Howard said simply. Mivax's cloudy eyes seemed to shine with moisture. "Then you are most welcome, humans of Earth. Our home is yours for as long as you wish to stay." As the landing team was led into the dome, Ryan fell into step beside Dr. Green. "I'm telling you, these systems are incredible," he whispered. "They're using technology from what must be 200 years ago, but they've adapted it ingeniously to keep running all this time." Samantha nodded. "The medical scans show signs of malnutrition and environmental stress. They're dying, Ryan." Inside the dome, the evidence of the colony's struggle was even more apparent. Patched walls, jury-rigged systems, and tired, thin aliens going about their daily tasks. Children with dimly glowing skin patterns stared at the human visitors with a mixture of fear and fascination. "Our council chamber is this way," Mivax said, leading them deeper into the dome. "There is much to discuss." As they walked, Ryan couldn't help but marvel at how far these people had come, and how far humans had come, to be walking on an alien world, about to sit in council with a species not their own. Humanity had reached the stars hoping to find they weren't alone. Now they knew. And their first contact wasn't with a mighty empire or an advanced civilization, but with the forgotten, the abandoned, the lost, with people who needed help. Dr. Samantha Green removed her helmet as she stepped through the inner airlock door. The atmosphere readings were within safe parameters for humans, though slightly lower in oxygen than Earth standard. The medical officer took a deep breath, tasting the alien air. It had a slight metallic quality that made her think of rain. The Zarathi council chamber was a large circular room with a domed ceiling. Light filtered in through panels that might once have been clear, but were now clouded with age. In the center of the room stood a round table with 12 seats, each occupied by a Zarathi with skin patterns that glowed with varying degrees of brightness. Elder Mivax gestured for the humans to take the 4 empty chairs that had been quickly added to the circle. These are our guests, Myvax announced to the council. They call themselves humans, from the planet Earth. Commander Howard took the lead, introducing each member of the landing team by name and role. Samantha noticed the Zorathi watching them with intense curiosity, particularly their hair, which seemed to fascinate the hairless aliens. "We are honored by your presence," said a female Zorathi with intricate patterns flowing across her face. "I am Council Member Zell, responsible for our food production." Each council member introduced themselves in turn, stating their area of responsibility: water recycling, education, medical care, power distribution, and so on. Samantha was struck by how organized they remained despite their isolation. "We have many questions," Myvax said after the introductions were complete. "But first we must ask, why have you come to our world?" Commander Howard explained about the Pathfinder's exploration mission and how they had detected the colony's distress signal. "We're here to explore, to learn," she concluded, "and when possible, to help." The word "help" caused a visible reaction among the council. The patterns on their skin brightened and several leaned forward in their seats. "What kind of help can you offer?" asked Vex, the youngest council member. "That depends on what you need," Howard replied. "But before we discuss that, we'd like to learn more about your situation. How has your colony survived for 200 years without support?" For the next hour, the Zorathi shared their history. They explained about the collapse, the political upheaval that had torn their empire apart, how the colony, originally established as a mining outpost, had been forgotten in the chaos, how the first generation had expected rescue that never came, and how each subsequent generation had focused on survival, adapting and maintaining systems far beyond their intended lifespan. "Our greatest challenge is replacement parts," Kayla, Tyr explained. "We've cannibalized everything we can. Some systems we've replaced with simpler versions, but others, like our atmospheric processors," Vex added. 3 of the 7 have failed completely. The others are functioning at less than half capacity." Samantha glanced at her medical readings again. The air in the dome was barely breathable, even for the Zorathi, whose breathing slits seemed designed for more moisture than this dry atmosphere provided. "May I access your medical records?" Samantha asked. "I'd like to understand how the conditions have affected your people." Council member Lyra, the medical officer, hesitated. "Our records are incomplete. Many of our medical devices stopped working generations ago." "I understand," Samantha said gently. "Would you be comfortable if I conducted some basic health assessments? It would help us know how best to assist you." Lyra's skin patterns brightened slightly. "Yes, that would be welcome." While Samantha discussed medical needs with Lyra, Lieutenant Miller was deep in conversation with Kayla about the colony's technical systems. "Your power grid is remarkable," he said, reviewing the diagrams she had drawn. "But you're right about the atmospheric processors. Without replacements, I estimate complete failure within 6 months, Kayla finished for him. At most. Security Chief Martinez had been quiet during most of the meeting, observing the Zorathi and making notes on his tablet. Now he spoke up. "What about defenses? Have you encountered any threats on this world?" The question seemed to surprise the council. "We are alone here," Elder Myvax said. "The native life forms are simple and pose no threat, and no one has come here since the colony was established. Until now." "What about your empire?" Martinez pressed. "If they remembered you existed, would they be a threat?" The council members exchanged looks. "We don't know what has become of the empire," Myvax admitted. "The last transmission we received 200 years ago spoke of civil war. If they still exist, we cannot say what they would want with us after so long." Commander Howard nodded, thoughtfully. "I think we have enough information for now. With your permission, we'd like to bring more specialists from our ship to conduct a full assessment of your colony's needs." "Yes," Myvax said, his voice firm. "You are welcome here." As the council meeting ended, the Zorathi led the humans on a tour of the colony. The situation was worse than Samantha had initially thought. The living quarters were cramped, with 3 generations often sharing small spaces. The hydroponics, gardens, once the colony's primary food source, were operating at minimal capacity. The water recyclers made constant grinding noises that Kayla explained meant imminent failure. Most concerning to Samantha was the medical facility, a small room with equipment that belonged in a museum rather than a functioning clinic. Lyra showed her the meager supplies of medications, many of which had expired decades ago and been reformulated by hand. "How many children are born with breathing difficulties?" Samantha asked as she examined a young Zorathi with fluttering gills. "Most, now," Lyra replied quietly. "The last generation born without breathing aids was my grandmother's." Samantha placed a gentle hand on the child's shoulder. "We can help with this," she promised. Across the colony, the other team members were making similar discoveries. Martinez found the security systems reduced to manual locks and volunteer patrols. Miller discovered power conduits held together with improvised materials that should have failed years ago. By the time they regrouped at the airlock, all 4 humans were subdued by what they had seen. "This is worse than we thought," Howard said, quietly as they walked back to the shuttle. "They've done amazing things to survive this long, but they're at the end of the line. They need more than we can provide on the Pathfinder," Martinez pointed out. "We're an exploration vessel, not a colony ship. The atmospheric processors alone would require parts we don't carry," Miller added, "and their medical needs are extensive." Samantha looked back at the dome, where several Zorathi, including Kala and Mivax, stood watching them leave. "We can't. Just document their existence and move on," she said firmly. "They'll be dead before another human ship happens to pass this way." Howard was silent for a long moment. Then she squared her shoulders. "We need to talk to the captain." Back on the Pathfinder, Captain Barnes listened to their report without interruption. When they finished, she asked just one question. "What do you recommend, Commander?" Howard exchanged glances with her team. "We recommend immediate humanitarian assistance, Captain, and a request to Earth Command for a full relief mission." Barnes nodded slowly. "That would delay our exploration schedule significantly. Earth Command may not approve." "With respect, Captain," Samantha said, stepping forward, "these people have survived for 200 years on hope. We're the first answer to that hope. If we leave them now—" She didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone on the bridge understood what was at stake. Captain Barnes stood up from her chair and walked to the view screen, looking down at the planet below. For a long moment she was silent. Then she turned to face her crew. "Contact Earth Command," she ordered. "Inform them we've made first contact with a stranded colony in need of humanitarian aid. Request permission for a relief mission." "And if they deny permission?" Martinez asked quietly. Barnes's expression hardened with determination. "We didn't come here to colonize," she announced. "We came to explore. But we're not leaving these people to die." Within hours, the Pathfinder had deployed its full complement of shuttles. Medical supplies, emergency ration packs, portable power units. Everything that could be spared was sent to the surface. On the planet below, Kayla stood with Elder Mivax as they watched the shuttles descend like falling stars. "Why are they doing this?" Mivax wondered aloud. "They owe us nothing." Kayla's skin glowed with the brightest patterns she had ever displayed. "Perhaps that is why they help," she said. "Not because they must, but because they can." The intervention had begun. Whether Earth Command approved or not, the humans had made their choice. They would not abandon the abandoned. 6 weeks after the Pathfinder's first contact with the Zorathi colony, the orbit of Viridian 6 buzzed with activity. 3 additional Earth vessels had arrived: the research ship Horizon, the medical frigate Mercy, and the industrial support vessel Forge. Earth Command had not only approved the relief mission but had made it a priority, redirecting ships from across human space. Engineer Kevin Porter wiped sweat from his brow as he worked in the tight space beneath the colony's main atmospheric processor. The heat here was intense, the machinery having run too hot for too long without proper maintenance. "Hand me the phase coupler," he called out to his partner. A 6-fingered blue hand passed him the tool. Kayla Tier had worked alongside Kevin every day since his arrival, learning the new technology as quickly as he could teach it. "This part connects to the filtration system?" she asked, her skin patterns glowing with curiosity. "Right," Kevin replied, attaching the component. "Your ancestors built this place to last," he commented. "With the right parts, we can have it running better than new." Kayla's skin patterns flickered, and what Kevin had learned was a sign of amusement. "My ancestors expected replacements every 50 years. They never imagined we would keep them running for 2 centuries. Kevin slid out from under the processor and stood up, checking the readings on his tablet. "We should be able to activate this unit tomorrow. That will bring atmospheric quality up to 70% of Earth standard. That is more than we have had in my lifetime," Kayla said softly. Across the colony, similar scenes played out. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez had established a medical clinic in what was once a storage area, now filled with equipment from the Mercy. She was currently examining a young Zarathi child whose breathing slits fluttered weakly. "The treatments are working," she told the anxious parent. "His oxygen absorption has improved 20% already." The Zarathi, who had introduced himself as Nix, bowed his head. "We thought he would not survive the year. You have given him a future." Lisa smiled as she applied a small patch to the child's neck. "This slow-release oxygen supplement will help until his breathing slits strengthen. Come back next week for a checkup." Outside the main dome, agricultural specialist Daniel Garcia worked alongside a team of Zarathi in newly constructed greenhouses. The original hydroponic systems had been beyond repair, but Daniel had brought a different approach. "These plants are adapted to low-water environments," he explained to his Zarathi students. "They'll produce 3 harvests per year and require minimal maintenance." "Will they taste better than our nutrition pastes?" asked a young Zarathi named Tala. Daniel laughed. "Guaranteed, you'll have fresh vegetables within 2 months." In the communication center, the changes were perhaps most dramatic. The ancient array that Kayla had maintained for years had been augmented with modern equipment. Communications Director John Hayes adjusted the final settings on the new relay station. "And we're live," he announced to the team around him. "This connects you to the human communication network. You can send and receive messages across 50 light years." Elder Mivax, who had insisted on being present for this moment, stepped forward with wonder in his cloudy eyes. "After 2 centuries of silence," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "we rejoin the stars." "There's more," John added. "We've been scanning for signals that match Zarathi communication patterns. We might be able to locate what remains of your empire." The news spread quickly through the colony. For the first time in generations, the Zarathi allowed themselves to hope for more than just survival. Children with newly treated breathing conditions ran through the corridors without wheezing. Adults with strengthened bodies took on work that would have exhausted them weeks before. In the central dome, Captain Barnes met with the colony council for their weekly progress update. The meeting room had been upgraded with proper lighting and comfortable chairs, a small change that symbolized the larger transformation. "The water recyclers are at 90% efficiency," reported Commander Howard. "Food production will be self-sustaining within 6 months. Medical treatments are proceeding ahead of schedule." "And what of your exploration mission?" asked Elder Mivax. "Surely Earth Command is eager for you to continue." Barnes smiled. "They've reassigned the Pathfinder. We're officially part of the Viridian Relief mission now. The Horizon will take over our exploration duties." The council members exchanged glances, their skin patterns shifting in complex ways. "We do not wish to delay your important work," Mivax said carefully. "This is important work," Barnes replied firmly. "First contact, cultural exchange. These are primary missions for Earth's space program. And humanitarian aid," added Dr. Green, who sat beside Barnes. "Humans have a long history of helping those in need." "But why?" Council Member Vex asked, leaning forward. "We have nothing to offer in return." The human team members looked at each other, seemingly surprised by the question. "You don't need to offer anything," Barnes said. "That's not why we help." "Humans have a saying," Miller added. A stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. The explanation seemed to both confuse and please the Zarathi. Their concept of aid had always been transactional. The Empire had established colonies to extract resources, not out of altruism. After the meeting, Elder Mivvax walked with Captain Barnes through the colony, observing the changes taking place. New walls were being constructed to expand living quarters. A proper school had been established with Zarathi and human teachers working together. The constant grinding of failing machinery had been replaced by the steady hum of efficient systems. Your people have transformed our home in weeks, Mivvax said. What would have taken us generations, if we had survived at all? We're just getting started, Barnes assured him. The forge is manufacturing custom parts for your unique systems. Within a year, the colony will be completely self-sufficient. Again. They stopped at a viewpoint that overlooked the valley beyond the colony. Construction vehicles moved across the landscape, preparing foundations for new domes. And these new buildings? Mivvax asked. Room to grow, Barnes explained. Your population has been declining due to the harsh conditions. Now that those conditions are improving, Mivvax nodded in understanding. The Zarathi birth rate had fallen dramatically as the colony struggled. Already, there were whispers among younger couples about starting families now that the future seemed secure. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of John Hayes, his face serious. Captain Elder, he said with a formal nod. We've received a response to our wideband queries. Barnes straightened. You found the Zarathi Empire? What remains of it, Hayes confirmed. The collapse split them into 3 factions. The largest calls itself the New Zarathi Hegemony. They verified the colony's identification codes and... He hesitated, glancing at Mivvax. And, the Elder prompted, they're sending ships. 3 warships, to be precise. They'll arrive in 5 weeks. The news hit Mivvax like a physical blow. His skin patterns dimmed to nearly black. Warships? Not aid vessels? Hayes shook his head. The message was brief. They stated they're coming to secure the colony and its resources. After 200 years, they remember us only for what? They can take, Mivvax said bitterly. Captain Barnes placed a hand on the Elder's shoulder, a human gesture of comfort she had learned the Zarathi understood. We'll deal with this together, she promised. As Hayes left to share the news with the command team, Mivvax turned to Barnes. You have given us so much, he said, but we cannot ask you to stand against warships from our own people. Barnes's expression grew determined. The Pathfinder is not a warship, she admitted, but we won't leave you to face this alone. Elsewhere in the colony, unaware of the approaching threat, humans and Zarathi continued to work side by side. In the medical clinic, a Zarathi child took his first clear breath. In the new school, human children visiting from the ships played with Zarathi children, inventing games that bridged their different biologies. In the engineering bay, Kevin Porter showed Calatir how to repair a power conduit, their hands, one with 5 fingers, one with 6, working in perfect coordination. None of them knew that their newfound peace was already at risk, or that the bonds they had formed would soon be tested by fire. 3 warships approaching from the Cygnus direction, Lieutenant Ryan Miller reported, his eyes fixed on the sensor displays. Based on the Zarathi historical records, they're heavily armed and will be here in 3 days. The colony's council chamber had become a war room. Maps and defense plans covered the table where Captain Barnes stood with Elder Mivvax and the combined human Zarathi leadership team. The Pathfinder is not designed for combat, Barnes said, stating the hard truth. And the Mercy is a hospital ship. The Forge has some defensive capabilities, but nothing that would stand against military vessels. Earth Command has dispatched the USS Defender, she added, but they won't arrive for 2 weeks. The chamber erupted into arguments. Some Zarathi believed they should submit to their original masters. Others feared retribution for accepting help from aliens. They abandoned us, Calatir shouted over the din. They left us to die. And now that strangers have shown us kindness, they return to claim ownership. Engineer Kevin Porter, who had been quietly studying the colony schematics, cleared his throat. Maybe we don't need a warship. We just need time. All eyes turned to him. What do you mean? Asked Captain Barnes. Kevin pointed to the mining equipment the original colonists had brought. We can repurpose these to create a planetary defense grid. It won't stop them, but it might slow them down until the Defender arrives. For the next 3 days, humans and Zorathi worked without rest. The colony's ancient communication array was modified to broadcast on frequencies that would disrupt the approaching warship's targeting systems. Mining lasers were converted into defensive weapons. The Pathfinder's shuttle engines were reconfigured to power a planetary shield cobbled together from spare parts and ingenuity. When the Zorathi warships arrived, they expected to find a helpless colony. Instead, they found a united front of 2 species standing together. The lead warship's commander, Supreme General Ziv, appeared on the communication screen. His skin pattern showed shock at seeing humans standing alongside the colonists. "This colony belongs to the hegemony," he declared. "Surrender now, and the aliens will be permitted to leave unharmed." Captain Barnes stood shoulder to shoulder with Elder Mivax as they responded. "This colony is under the protection of Earth," Barnes stated firmly, "and its people have chosen their own path," Mivax added. For 2 tense days, the warships tested the makeshift defenses. The shield held, barely, against initial probing attacks. Each time the hegemony forces found a weakness, human and Zorathi engineers worked together to reinforce it. On the 3rd day, as power reserves dwindled and the defense grid faltered, sensors detected new arrivals. Not just the USS Defender, but a flotilla of Earth vessels. Message from Admiral Susan Kelly on the Defender, Communications Officer Alan Ward announced. She says, "The diplomatic delegation from the Coalition of Free Worlds would like to extend an invitation to all parties for peaceful resolution." The Zorathi Empire, faced with not just human resistance but a multi-species alliance, chose diplomacy over destruction. 1 month later, Elder Mivax and Captain Barnes stood again at the viewpoint overlooking the valley. New construction stretched across the landscape, not just colony buildings but a spaceport where ships from Earth and the reformed Zorathi hegemony now docked regularly. "The treaty is signed," Barnes said, passing a tablet to Mivax. "Viridian 6 is recognized as an independent world under joint human-Zorathi governance." Mivax's skin glowed with bright patterns of joy. "And the hegemony?" "They're sending scientists and educators, not soldiers. The terms include technological exchange and cultural reconnection." Below them, a group of children, both human and Zorathi, played in a newly constructed park. Their laughter carried on the wind, a sound that had been rare in the colony for generations. "When we sent our distress call into the darkness," Mivax said softly, "we thought no one would ever come." Barnes smiled. "The universe can be a lonely place. That's why when someone falls into your life unexpectedly, sometimes it's exactly what both of you needed." The colony of Viridian 6 would become the cornerstone of a new alliance between humanity and the Zorathi, a testament to what can happen when the lost are found and the abandoned are embraced, a beacon of hope built by those who refuse to let distance, difference, or duty stand in the way of doing what was right.